Hello, thank you for watching this video. This is Namtro with Namtro Gaming. Today we'll be going over the Glacial Cascade Shadow and how to make it more effective for yourself. The Glacial Cascade Shadow is interesting in a couple aspects. One of the aspects is he's a caster. The spell that he uses does both physical and cold damage. The way I end up scaling it is from crit multi, power charge and crit, and then critical weakness. The other way you could try to do it was with increased area effect, maybe conk effect, and then spell damage, and trying to get high enough area with that. And you know, spell damage works for both of them, so that's good. Cast speed's really good for both, so both are very good choices. I opted for the crit way, and it actually performed pretty well. It took us about 11 minutes to do this map, which isn't like record-breaking times at all, but the thing to note is the character really didn't have great gear up until this, you know, like he could get into maps. He barely had capped resists. He could still get more HP on his gear. I mean, he had decent gear. I mean, he's had 4.3k HP. That being said, I also spec'd for a lot of HP. So, you know, he was okay. The other thing that to note, the reason why crit isn't that bad on Glacial Cascade is because it's both physical and cold damage, so that means elemental reflect isn't going to be as effective, and physical reflective isn't going to be as effective to kill yourself. So it's 2/3 cold, 1/3 physical, and that's why it's kind of hard to scale with. Some of the other things, you can't really scale it with cold damage, you can't really scale it with elemental damage, and you can't really scale it with physical damage. You could try, but it's just, you're not really going to have a good time with it. You can scale it with spell damage, increase area effect, cast speed, and crit damage and crit chance. All of those would increase the spell's effectiveness and be really great. This was right after Echo was added to the game. This was during the 1-month hardcore race, and so I didn't really have much gear to work with, and I kind of just went in blind. By the end of it, I had 5.9k damage, so 5.9k damage, 3.42 cast speed, which is pretty good. Kept things frozen for the most part. The physical damage also stunned him once in a while. The cast speed from everything ended up being 191%, Echo being the biggest player here. And then the crit multi was at 536%, and that's before we apply crit weakness. And crit weakness is just going to make that insane. So, and then the other part too is we had a crit chance of 50%. The crit chance was actually, you know, not bad, considering, you know, we could still have a better dagger. Like, we didn't have a Chris with 80% crit chance, and then like 100% crit damage, crit chance for spells, and you know, there's other things we could upgrade to. So, which, you know, that's pretty nice as well. The other thing to note too is we also had Val Haste rockin', as long with Haste, Grace, and Clarity. But we would once in a while have Val Haste. And once we had Val Haste going, I don't know why that cut off like that, but yeah, we ended up spiking all the way up to 7.6k DPS, almost a 1800 damage boost, which is pretty crazy. 4.46 cast speed, which is not bad at all. And as you can see, the Val Haste, because of the Echo, just scaled incredibly well. I linked Val Haste with increased duration. The increased duration made it last about 9 seconds. During those 9 seconds, I could pretty much melt anything I wanted, and it was amazing. So yeah, and you know, you have to keep in mind with these damage numbers, you have to either multiply them by 2 or 3 if they're centered in your Glacial Cascade. So when this was happening, it was between, you know, 15k to 22k DPS with Val Haste. If they were in the middle of my Glacial Cascade. Normally it's around 12 to 16k DPS. So yeah, and you could definitely tell when you crit and when you don't crit, because, you know, we kind of scaled a lot of our damage off that, and we didn't have a lot of spell power yet. That being said, eventually we would have had more spell power, increasing the spell's effectiveness by a lot, and overall I was pretty pleased with the build. You know, for the most part, it was pretty self-found. I didn't really sell much in the league, so I didn't really make a lot of currency. I pretty much took all that, just sent it directly to standard or to hardcore or whatever, wherever it went. And this was on the softcore league, and yeah, I tried doing a hardcore. I made it to level 50 a couple times, once with Incinerator and once with this class, and you know, and we were just kind of screwing around, and my motivation for dying and stuff just wasn't there. Like, you know, I did very well in the 2-week race and got to 87, but this 1 month, my motivation wasn't there for it. So, but you know, it was a pretty effective build. I liked it. I had fun with it, and I do recommend it. We can go over basically a couple other things too. One of the things I kind of want to go over is the defense. The defense, with everything on, when we're in town, it's not that great. We do have iron reflexes, so with grace and everything, it scales the defense quite nicely. This would get a lot higher, obviously. Our grace was only level, where is it? Grace was only level 18. It gets 2 more levels, and also we have both charisma and influence. These are going to be getting moved in the new patch and whatnot. After the new patch hits, I'm going to redo this talent tree and post it to you, but I don't really think there's anything that's really going to change with this build other than a couple things. So, you know, otherwise I think it's going to be pretty solid. I'll have this version of the build in the link, but you know, when the new league comes out, I'll definitely update it. The other thing to note too is, yeah, our gear. This was our wand. It gave us about 77 spell damage and 73% chance to crit, which actually, you know, was pretty good with the mana and mana regen. The wand actually wasn't half bad. I do think a Chris with crit chance though and spell damage would definitely outplay this, but this was definitely a good stepping stone. And then we had the shield. The shield gave us life, mana, dual resist, and 85% chance to crit with spells. The energy shield was pretty lackluster, making our mana a little lackluster as well. So, I mean, the shield was good for resist, a little bit of health, and the crit chance. The boots, they had move speed, 2 decent resist rolls, and mediocre life. The belt had 2 life rolls. Both the life rolls weren't the highest they could be. The actual prefixed life roll could be a lot higher, so you know, you could get a lot more life out of the belt, probably about 60 more life out of the belt at least. But you know, the ES and the resist and the armor definitely help. We got life, double resist iron gloves, mediocre life, decent resist rolls. So it performed pretty well. I actually needed the strength too, I think, for a couple gems. Then we have a 2-stone ring, again mediocre life, a little bit of mana regeneration, a little bit of energy shield scaling our mana, and then some lightning resist, so doubling up on the lightning resist, giving us a fair amount of lightning resist. Our DPS ring, giving us a ton of dex, which we actually didn't really need dex at all. It just kind of came with the ring. With crit chance and cast speed, with decent life, a little better than mediocre for sure. And then our amulet was actually pretty good. You know, an okay life roll. And then crit multiplier, which could be a little higher. I believe that is it could be definitely higher, I'm pretty sure. So there's that. And then our chest piece, our 5-link chest piece, Definitely could be better, but I mean, it gave us a decent amount of mana, gave us okay life, and then gave us some fire resist. And then our helmet. Our helmet was the thing that gave us the most life, and then some resist. So I mean, I guess we did end up getting life on pretty much everything, but the life definitely could have been higher on some pieces. And I think that's what I was more thinking of when I said there's no life on my gear. But yeah, because for instance, the life on this could be, you know, upwards over 80. Same with this. You know, same with this. Same with this. The only one that rolled a decent life roll was this ring and this helmet. Everything else is, you know, kind of mediocre, which is fine. As far as flasks go, I had a removes bleeding sapping flask. The sapping flask was kind of interesting. It worked out pretty well for the most part. I think I do need more mana regeneration to make this more viable, but I feel like because I don't have regen on this character, the sapping flask gave you a decent regen over 8 seconds that actually regened a decent amount of your health. And of course, removes bleeding is always definitely useful for corrupting blood, for puncture. Basically anything that gives you a bleed will get negated by this potion. Bubbling giant flask of heat. I actually wish this was a seething giant flask of heat, but it was still good. Dispels frozen and chilled. So if you ever get frozen, you definitely want something like this. Now this is the important one. Whenever you do a curse flask, always make sure to have it either on a quicksilver pot or a stone granite flask. The reason is because you're gonna want to put it on one of those, because when your life is full, when you go to 100% life, anything with any effects that are on the potion expire. So on potions that don't, you know, revolve around something like that, if I hit this, you'll notice this curse immune lasts the full 6 seconds, which is a big deal, because if you used it on one of these, the chances of it actually lasting the full 8 or 3.4 seconds, pretty slim. So yeah, I definitely don't recommend doing it on that. I did have a Surgeon's Granite Pot of Iron Skin. Surgeon's because we do actually crit a decent amount, so it refills our potion pretty fast. And then 65% increased armor during flask effect, which was also pretty huge. Once we actually hit this, as you can see, we have 4.1 KD armor. Sorry, I was about to say DPS. I'm drunk as hell. We go to 14k armor, which is, you know, a lot better. It gave us 59 damage reduction instead of the 29, so it's about a 30% extra damage reduction. And then we also use a Surgeon's Hollowed Hybrid Flask of Adrenaline, mainly because we do crit a lot. It also gives us move speed. I mainly did it for the crit a lot, though. So yeah. And yeah, otherwise the character performed pretty well. We got to level 81 during the hardcore race, and you know, I had fun with the character. I don't know if I'm gonna play this build a lot again, but if I do, I'd probably mix it up a little bit, try a couple other things. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy about the character, and I actually do suggest it because it is. I mean, I was doing endgame maps with it, so it is effective at least getting to endgame maps and doing them. You know, a lot of people are gonna argue about what's efficient, but you know, for a newer player, I think it's a great character. Even if you're, you know, kind of a moderate to veteran player, still suggest giving it a round, just because, you know, it actually did perform pretty well, and I was pretty happy with it. So anyways, as always, thank you for watching this video. Be kind, be nice, be courteous. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and I'll catch you guys later.